said we're going to base it off 12 months, but anything that's 12 or more hits is going to be an A. If it's 11 to 6, a B. 5 to 3, a C. 2 to 1, a D. No hits, E. So you have both methodologies on your system. SX, ICSR ranking, the same thing. We're going to base it off of hits. A new item is anything that's less than 12 months old. We're going to use 5 ranks based on 12 months. And if it's less than 12 months old, don't let it go below a C. And we're using percentage, but you could load it up as numbers. So this is the first time we're kind of getting ready to see what I talked about this morning. Chevrolet, Ford, if you're one of the exotics, BMW, Audi, pick whatever cars you want. They still have the same things, the gas pedal, the brake, the blinker, the emergency brake. They're just in different places, okay? But it's still all the same information. And then we're coming up in SX, again, just setting up, and again, this company set it up as A's 80, B's 15, C's 4, D's 1, E's 0. And you'll see many more parameters on how to go into this. I'm just giving you that big picture of how to set up ranking. Got a question back here, guys.
Just a minute ago, you said usage based on 12 months. In your example here, and the reason
Not
I'm
usage,
asking,
hits.
I'm sorry?
Hits.
Yeah, average hits in 12 months. But in your example here, you have 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6.
No. Now that's something different. I'm only going to pull out, and I should have highlighted this. Put a big mark just around this. That's in a minute going to be something else, how we want to calculate usage based on this rank, Eric.
Okay.
Though, again, I apologize. If you're on that SX side right here, it's saying A's are 80, B's are 15, C's are 4, D's are 1. Perfect. Any other things on rank?
Oh, yeah. Is this the same? Let's go in.
I'm going to still have you catch because we want to, when you get that DVD, you'll go, what'd that guy ask? There you go.
So this is the same thing that's used for safety stock. Is that right?
In a little bit, we're going to take parameters, and that was I was saying. The first thing that I was showing you how we set up ranking. Now we're going to use it for smart parameters. So yes, we're going to say, hey, different ranked items can have a different usage window. We're going to go through that. Different ranked items can have a different safety stock. We're going to go through that. So that's what you're asking, and it's going to be dynamic. Next month, the ranks change. How many of you guys, most of you are still on a static system. You set up all your standard stuff. Hey, probably for most of you, it's a 6-month window, B backwards, 50% safety. It's been in there since the day you went live, and it's standard general thumb across all your items, and it's never changed. We're much better and smarter than that today. We want parameters at A, treat A's differently than D's, as far as usage window and safety, and we don't want it to lock in. If this item was a D 20 years ago, that doesn't mean it's a D today. And I know you guys aren't going back and selecting all your items where the rank changed and redoing their parameters. So you basically have a static system for most of you that aren't using it. This makes it dynamic. Okay, everyone good? And you'll see that come across. If a D item becomes an A, it'll change its safety parameters. It'll change its usage window, depending on how you set it up. Okay, any other questions? All right. So we've talked about stock. And again, I just want to, before we move into this next part, should we stock an item or not? And I talked to you about hits and cost and a little bit of a mind twister of how much we could go down a $25 item in 4 hits, and you would lose less money stocking it than not stocking it, or you'd break even, okay? Then we talked about your ARP. Am I going to bring it direct from the vendor? Am I going to central warehouse? Am I going to do central distribution center? We'll talk about analysis over the next couple days, but then we particularly talked about the path. That's your system's way of knowing, should I roll this usage up to another branch because I'm going to get my product from them? If you don't keep your ARP right, and I've got a branch up here, let's call it a central distribution, and I'm feeding another branch, but I haven't set up the ARP, so it doesn't know I was supposed to be feeding them. Whose inventory am I sending to them when I send it? Someone else's, because it wasn't planned for them. That's what everyone needs to understand. It was either for customers or another branch. And I watch that all the time, goes, oh, ARPs don't matter. They matter a whole bunch because that says, let's have the right usage for who needs it. Otherwise, you're stealing product for someone else. Then we just talked about rank. Just to get out there, A, B, C, D, E in this world, it can be more than that. How we can set it on percentage or we can set it on base hits, and how we're getting ready to use it in a little bit. Good to go? All right. So now let's take this and where we were this morning with this big picture, and now let's dive into the order point deeper. And you know where I'm getting ready to dive into. We want a decent order point, but to get a decent order point, good usage forecast, good lead time, proper amount of safety, and then we'll talk about some adjusters when our traditional math, sometimes it's right, but just there's a better answer. So we're going to go take apart order point when we buy. So first of all, the order point is a trigger that assures enough available product to meet the customer or branch needs during the lead time of the period. So that's all it's saying. If it takes 7 days to get this product in, the order point's going to signal you when you're down to 7 days supply plus some safety. Just say you're down to how long it takes for it to get in. You better place a PO or a transfer if you don't run out. That's all order point's really doing. All right? It's made up of usage, lead time, and of course, safety stock. And I covered this morning, but extra stock carried in inventory to protect against reasonable variations in usage and or lead time. Let's first talk about reasonable. What am I talking about there? What was the fill rate that I said most of you probably should be going for? 95 to 98, correct? 96 to 98. So that means by default, we are going to have what? We are going to have stockouts. They're planned stockouts, everybody. Now again, I only want a 2-day stockout, not a 2-month stockout, but you can't go back unless you beef these way up and you're in the medical world and making about 300% margin and say we're going to have 100%. It will never work. There are stockouts planned by the way we're doing this because it would be too expensive for most of us to even pull a 99% fill rate on the margins you have. All right, so you need to understand, if we normally sell 3 of these at a time, 3 of these at a time, 6 of them, and a guy asks for 100, we're probably going to have what? A stock out. We're not going to have enough safety to cover that huge of a shift. Because I get back some companies going, oh, if I drive this right, we should never have a stock out. That's okay, but you're not going to be in business either unless you're making these huge margins because you can't afford it. Then the second part, safety is often needlessly used for the correction of internal inaccuracies and inefficiencies. It's a very costly approach. And what am I talking about there? Oh, my inventory folks can't keep up. They're always 3 days behind, so let's add 3 more days safety on just in case. Oh, my receiving team's always 3 days behind. Let's add another 3 days on for them in case they can't keep up. Oh, my AP, you guys following me? Usage and lead times are the 2 things we don't control. Now, that doesn't mean, I'll go back to Eric at the beginning, my purchasing can't keep up. I'm not going to cut my nose off, spite my face. I'm going to put the extra safety in so I get the good customer experience. But I'm going to acknowledge that. Go fix why my purchasing team can't get to it on a regular basis, get that fixed, and then take the safety back out. Make sense? All right, very good, you guys. So now, order point, usage during the lead time plus safety, and this is key. Most of you in today's world, whether you know it or not, are in a service world. Price is important, but we live in a service world today. All right? In a service environment, products must be replenished when the stock level goes below order point. That's what the order point is. So if you have an item go below order point, and for whatever reason, you don't replenish it. Oh, we're still on a review cycle, Grant, so I only look at it every 2 weeks, even though it went below order point last week. Oh, we're waiting for target, so I saw it went below order point, but we're only $5,000 out of a $10,000 target. Whatever the reason is, if it goes below order point and you don't replenish it, here's how I tell inventory folks to think about it. If you don't replenish it and it's below order point, you're okay with a stock out. That's that simple. If you're not, then you're going to figure out a way to replenish this, whether you're in a $5,000 out of a $10,000 target, you're 1 day into a review cycle. If it's important enough, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, what's the best way to replenish this? But in a service world, if you do not want to stock out, you have to replenish when you go below order point. I'm just curious. How many folks today have moved to a worthy item below order point where they look at all worthy items below order point every day, away from what I would call that review cycle? Hey, we look at this line every 2 weeks, whether we need to or not. Then if something goes astray during that 2 weeks, oh well. How many look at their items every day, worthy A's and B's below order point? For you that are not, you'll find out it's a whole different world when you switch over. You are letting stockouts happen every day in that review cycle world. Okay. And that's what this is. Most of you cannot afford not to look at worthy items below order point every day. So let's first start getting usage put together, because this is where it all starts. We're going to build usage, we're going to build lead time, we're going to build safety stock. Let me just check something here for us real quick. Very good. So let's just go through usage first and how it works, and then we'll come back and bring it home. Most of us think about usage this way. What is this? It's June. So we'll put up March, April, May. I'll just keep it simple for now. And here we are, June, question mark. So again, back in May we sold 30, in April we sold 32, and in May we sold 28. Again, keeping the math simple for us, not too long, it's after lunch. Most of us would come back if this is all we had. We want to predict what we think we're going to sell in June. What do you guys think? Yeah, okay. We're coming back and doing some type of average of this. This would be called a backwards 3 months. B backwards means look at the months that just took place. 3-month window says look at the past 3 months. Average them together, come up with 30. What would a B6 do, just to make sure we're on track? It'd look at the last 6 months and take an average, okay? Now, how well does that work? Let's see the pool. We'll talk about a pool distributor since summer's come on in Michigan. How's that work for a pool distributor? Here we are in June. Everyone's opening their pools up, and let's say we ran it as a B3. How much pool stuff did they sell? They sold a little, but March, April, May, they weren't selling much, so it's saying don't bring anything in, correct? Then what happens with a B3, I'm out here in September, everyone's closing up their pools, but it's doing what? Looking at August, looking at July, looking at June, the peak of the season, it's saying what? Buy, buy, buy. And you're going, system's broke. It's trying to buy all this stuff. We're going into the non-season. Everyone following this? That's what we call seasonality. Dave now has it in A+. That was the world he was waiting for. So what we do there, now some of you would call it an F forward, but we take it a little farther and we like to trend it because last year doesn't always line up with this year. But if this was a T3, what I call a T3 trend 3, here it is in June. Same thing where we were a minute ago, but a T says, hey, let's go back to a year ago, June. And now let's look at June, July, and August last year. Everyone following this? To predict the pool season we're coming into. HVAC, same thing. If we were in the heating industry, what would it be doing? Right now on a B backwards, buying all this heat stuff. And what would it be doing for air conditioning? Nothing, even though that's the opposite of what we need. So this is how a seasonal item works. So there's a method. Do I use a B backwards, S seasonal, F forward, T trend, kind of all different on your system, but the same thing. One says look at the past history that just happened. One says go back a year and go forward with it. Everyone good? Now I'm going to take that deeper in a little bit. That's the overall big picture. What method do we want to use? How many months do we want to use? Let's start pulling this back into a few other things. Now for that to work, let's go take this apart first. I have to have the B or the T right. I have to have the number of months right. But what else do I have to have right even before that? These usage buckets that I'm using. All right, hey, we were out of stock that month and no one lost sales and we sold 0. Even though there really was folks asking for 30, since we were out of stock and we didn't lost sales, what happened to it? Got to 0 and it becomes skewed. So my data, my usage bucket is wrong. And this month, we got all the back orders came in and what just happened? And oh, you guys already know this pattern, don't you? All right, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, as long as it's in this window, I'm okay because these two average each other out. What about when I move into July? Oh, now it's using these three and this big skewed numbers in there and this is out and all of a sudden, bam. And if I was in this window coming back, it would have taken it. You guys following me? Usage goes astray. That's the point we're bringing up here. The first thing to get a good average monthly usage, a good daily usage, is to have good usage buckets. What goes into our usage buckets? And we already talked about it. Sales, warehouse transfers, but now we use roll up, so I like to do that way, rolled up from our babies. All right, lost sales, and then we take out exceptional sales. Then I like to say plus or minus human input. So this is what we regularly sell. This is what we transfer to our babies, but it'll roll into it. Lost sales. That will help keep this right. Exceptional sales. Now, what are we talking about as far as exceptional sales? I heard two answers, and one I liked and one I didn't like as much. You guys help me. I normally sell 10, 10, 10. Sold 1,000. What do you think? Most of us are going to pop right up because we had exceptional sale, right? I'm going to change the verbiage on you slightly. Exceptional sale to me is a non-reoccurring, one-time, whoever said it over here, sale. Numbers don't tell me, because how do I know Charlie, my awesome A-player salesperson, just didn't go out and land an A account that buys 990 from me a month? If I just let the system knock this out, back to 10, which a lot of us do, or we even look at it, you would have done it, that may have been what? A reoccurring sale, just larger than we're used to, but it could have been a new customer that we've taken on. And anyone that's knocked out usage finds that out later, go, there's a difference between if it's a new customer versus a one-time sale. Now, if it's a one-time sale and I don't plan on it reoccurring, that's exactly what I'd hope the system do. Go knock the 990 out that one-time sale. Oh, that was our boss. Remember this friendly competition? He's friends with that electrical distributor guy off in New Mexico, and they ran out of stock, and we had some overstock, and we shipped him 990. Now, my guy should have marked it exceptional sale so it never got in there, but if it did, that was a one-time sale. We don't plan on that reoccurring. Knock it out. Oh, our salesperson picked up a new customer that's going to buy 990 or around 1,000 a month. There's a different fix here. What should that fix be? I'm going to come right back in and make my history simulate what it's going to do, because history comes from the past, but I want it to represent what? The future. And that there's a little buzz in that if you think it. It comes from the past, but I want it to represent the future. And again, if this is a new customer I picked up that wasn't in my past, I still want it to represent their buying. Everyone there? Not exceptional in this case. Large sale, but not exceptional. Not one time. Versus that other one, 1990 exceptional. So I like to bring that home. So large or an exceptional sale is not a large sale. It's a non-reoccurring sale. Everyone okay with this? There's a big difference in those two. And then again, plus or minus human input, that's what we're talking. Sometimes we got to go out and smooth some usage or change it or fix it. All right, and then we're going to manipulate that. Now, we're getting ready to take a break here, and then we're going to come back and pull this together. We're going to do a little more with these usage buckets, the methodology, the B backwards, the T trends, and then we're going to bring the lead time into it, the safety, adjusters, and create our order point. Any questions? The day, you guys, some of you are already going, cow, we're 2/3 done. We're down to the end almost. Not down, but we're cruising through day one pretty quickly. We're getting everything covered, but you're going, how could we talk about this stuff for 3 days? Today will be this big picture. Tomorrow we'll bring it into your system. Any questions so far on usage that we need to talk about before the break? All right, you guys, I probably have about 2:01. Let's spend 15 minutes. We'll get you back here. Yep, 2:02, so let's get started up about 2:16, 2:17, and we'll take this apart. Mr. Jeff. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay. No, she's on. Let me see what's going on over here. You know what, Grant? We got actually this on the inside. You know, it worked before. We'll let it work again.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. There we go, Mr. Jeff. Okay. Oh, you can cut that down a little. There we go. All right. A few questions during the break, but I still like to come back. So I got a little bit delayed out there, a few things. But any questions as we move on? Got a few ranking questions and such. That was from, okay. We're going to continue on then with our usage. So here's the first part I want to talk about. Again is, we got to collect these sales buckets. So what we're getting ready to use, and it even came up during the break here. There's some new features. I won't get into them today, but you can now start setting your systems up. Do I want to record usage on ship date or order date? Now, it's still going to wait for you to invoice it, but most of us would switch over. If we have back orders, most of our systems have been geared to what? When we ship it, regardless of when the order was taken, to post the history, the usage in that period. A lot of us are going to come back and say, post it when I invoice, but post it under when the customer wanted it, not when we were able to ship it. And therefore, what would it have done with that 30? Moved it back into May, even though we invoiced them in April, saying the customers want it in May, so it's going to start keeping your usage buckets correct. So as long as we're putting sales tickets on correctly, we're doing lost sales, we're watching exceptional sales, we're using some of the exception report, we want good usage buckets. So is there anything you want to ask about the actual usage buckets before we move on? All right. Now let's go through a couple things that we do. I just want to go through and explain this, then we'll come back and pull the PowerPoints back into them. Oh, real quick, there was a question that came up, so I just want to ask. Now this one was out on SX, a commodity question. How are you guys handling today on SX? You've got something that's being fed from the vendor, but it's a commodity item. It could be drywall, what I can get from 20 different vendors. It could be fittings if you're a plumbing house. But anyway, I've got this stuff I can get from 20 different suppliers. How are most people doing that? Because I got some folks, well, they got the same item on there 20 times for 20 different vendors, and that causes a nightmare. It keeps pricing right, but our usage is all over the place. I always push back to keep one item on your system for that, even if you're using multiple vendors, to keep usage right and deal with the pricing afterwards. Am I missing anything on SX? Is there a generic? Hey, this product is set up as V vendor, but I want it generic, meaning I don't know who I'm going to get it from. I'm going to do that on the fly kind of, but it still keeps everything under the same. Is that how folks are running it? Is there a generic, or you just not have to load the vendor?
No, actually, we have a generic, then we also have vendor specific. But we just chose to just use the generic code.
So it's a generic code in there?
Yes.
Okay. Who asked that question again? That'll get you, there's a generic available. So again, most folks, I just want to come from experience. The question was, they're not loading 20 different items for 20, the same item for 20. And that's why I figured most folks were doing it. They're going to keep one item, even if I buy it from multiple vendors. The usage will be right, your PO will be right. The pricing, you might have to do some working with, correct? Good to go, Steve? Okay. I'll just keep it up here for a minute. All right. So now, let's start a part. Oh, Courtney, one more up here. Right in the middle, right? Raise your hand high for me. Thank you. Was it Mike? Very good.
That hit on we had a situation recently, and it was on commodity. And what about,
Pulled it up closer,
what
Mike.
about the lead time?
There you're going to run into issues again. Now,
Coming from different manufacturers, the lead time is different. And in ICSW, you've got it loaded with a vendor number. And does that vendor number that's loaded in ICSW exclude any vendor that's not that vendor number?
I believe, now again, I work with a lot of systems, so I'd have to go look. I believe in your systems, though, if you've got it loaded as a non-generic, so you're saying this is my vendor of choice, commodity. Any other lead times that come from another vendor are more than likely going to get flagged exceptional. Does anyone know the answer to that on SX? Are they getting flagged exceptional if you buy it from a different vendor than your normal vendor? Point being, I believe they're going to get flagged exceptional. It's going to come out on your lead time exception report, and you're going to have to look at that and bake it back in. I mean, that's the trouble we run into with one vendor versus there's a reason I want the 20 vendors in a sense. You know what I mean? The 20 SKUs for pricing, for lead times, but the usage becomes skewed. Now, anyone on shims, it had a pretty good generic package. I could load up the same item, 20 different vendors, and it would keep lead time by vendor. It would keep pricing by vendor. But the Fax SX and A Plus does not have that same feature. I know I'm not answering what you're looking for. I don't know if it's going to include that generic vendor lead time or not. I believe it's only going to count the lead times that are on the vendor of record. I'm pretty sure that's what it's doing. And it's still going to track it, but it's going to mark it exceptional. Okay. Okay. Now, let's start using these usage. Oh, one more here. Go ahead, Travis.
Usage bucket question. Does the usage bucket get populated correctly if the point of sale location receives inventory from a central warehouse and a supplier direct?